In a study organized by Charles Bond, people in 58 countries were asked how to tell when someone's lying in their own language. Bond's global deception research team coded over 11,000 beliefs and found a surprising amount of cross-cultural consensus. Gaze aversion, that is the belief that liars won't look you in the eye, was cited as the most common cue. It was mentioned by over 60% of the respondents across 58 countries and was the most prevalent belief about deception. That is dead wrong. Liars don't avoid eye gaze. Sometimes they look more because they think you're looking for gaze aversion. But most studies show gaze is not related to deception at all. So how can we be so wrong? How is it that the #1 global belief about deception is completely false? I have some hunches about this. I want to tell you about 6 myths about deception that lead us to false beliefs like this one. The first myth is that only bad people lie. We know this isn't true from the previous module. Most lies are told to serve others, altruistic lies, so it isn't the case that only bad people lie. Second of all, liars feel guilty. That's a myth. Most people justify their lies to themselves, and so they don't really feel guilt because they think they have a good reason for lying. This is especially true if someone else tells them to lie in what we call sanctioned lying in studies of deception. They don't feel guilt when they're lying for someone else. The third myth is this myth that the eyes are the window to the soul. Gaze is not a reliable cue. So where does the false belief come from, and why does it persist? People often believe this cliché that the eyes are window to the soul. It's poetic, but it's not true. The fourth myth is that guilt is written all over your face. It's also connected to the belief that liars are ashamed, and this myth suggests that liars will be obvious in their face. Visual primacy is the idea that we look in the face first, we look for visual cues first especially, and liars compensate for that by using honest demeanor cues, so you can't really tell very well by the face. The fifth myth is that accusations reveal the truth. It's what Levine and McCornack called the probing heuristic. It suggests that we can uncover the truth by asking the right questions and by making accusations against guilty people. But life isn't a Perry Mason movie. People don't really confess on the stand, and if you say liar, liar, pants on fire and expect people to confess, you're going to be disappointed. The sixth myth is that innocent people would never confess to something they didn't do. And this is a tough one, because people really do believe that they personally would never falsely confess to something they didn't do. But under stressful conditions, and especially if the person is mentally disabled or young, or has a very strong trust of authority figures, or is easily persuadable, he or she can be prompted to falsely confess. Yet most people don't believe in false confessions, or even if they do in principle, they think they wouldn't be susceptible. There have been hundreds of cases where convictions based on false confessions have been overturned based on DNA evidence. Under the right conditions, almost any of us would falsely confess. Consider the famous case of Marty Tankleff. The History Channel produced a show about him, and he also appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He was 17 years old when he discovered the bodies of his parents murdered in their family home. He was distraught and was interrogated for many hours. The police told him that his father's dying words were that Marty had killed him, and that was a lie. His confession did not fit the facts of the case at all, but it was important to the jury. Check out the website of the Innocence Project. They document many cases of DNA exonerations where there's been a false confession as part of the case. Marty Tankleff was sentenced to 50 years in jail, and he served almost 20 of those until his case was thrown out. You just don't know what you will do under stress. We've talked about 6 different myths about deception detection, but where do these incorrect beliefs come from? In Albert Fry's book, Detecting Lies and Deceit, he offers 3 sources of incorrect beliefs. One is what he calls the moral explanation. We believe that people should feel guilty when they lie, and so we look for evidence of that guilt in their face and in their eyes. The second explanation for these false beliefs is what he calls the exposure explanation. So-called experts perpetuate the myths. Just about every pop culture article on lying says that you can look in the eyes or that you can tell from the face. Even police interrogation manuals show that police and professionals are often given the wrong cues to look for, and this makes them more resistant to training on the real cues because they've been told by experts what they think is reliable. The third explanation is what's called the accusation explanation. People look nervous or guilty when they're accused, even if they're innocent. So how are these incorrect beliefs maintained? Again, Professor Vrij offers some explanations. First is what he calls illusory correlations. We form an impression and then we look for behaviors to support it, like in the case of gaze. A study of Levine and colleagues shows that when people thought they were watching a video of a liar, they saw less eye contact than when they thought that same person was telling the truth. So we are looking for less eye contact when people are lying than when they're telling the truth. The second reason is what he calls confirmation bias. This means we seek information that confirms our existing beliefs. It's also known as belief perseverance. We ignore information that disconfirms those existing beliefs. He also talks about the power of thinking, that the more you think about a belief, it strengthens that belief. So the more that you try and find reasons why someone might be lying or reasons why they might not be looking at you, then that might just justify your incorrect belief. Another reason is that we get terrible feedback. Feedback has to be frequent, reliable, and immediate in order for it to work. Most people don't discover lies until days or weeks later, or they never discover them at all. It's hard to put two and two together to figure out the right cues when you have your biases working against you. In the next module, we'll discuss these biases more and talk about ways that you can overcome them in order to more accurately detect deception.